rural poverty in developing countries. The causes of rural poverty are complex and multidimensional. They involve, among other things, culture, climate, gender, markets, and public policy. Likewise, the rural poor are quite diverse both in the problems they face and the possible solutions to these problems. This pamphlet examines how rural poverty develops, what accounts for its persistence, and what specific measures can be taken to eliminate or reduce it. Broad economic stability, competitive markets, and public investment in physical and social infrastructure are widely recognized as important requirements for achieving sustained economic growth and a reduction in rural poverty. In addition, because the rural poor's links to the economy vary considerably, public policy should focus on issues such as their access to land and credit, education and health care, support services, and entitlements to food through well-designed public works programs and other transfer mechanisms. About 1/5 of the world's population is afflicted by poverty. These people live on less than $1 a day. Poverty is not only a state of existence but also a process with many dimensions and complexities. Poverty can be persistent, chronic, or transient, but transient poverty, if acute, can trap succeeding generations. The poor adopt all kinds of strategies to mitigate and cope with their poverty. To understand poverty, it is essential to examine the economic and social context, including institutions of the state, markets, communities, and households. Poverty differences cut across gender, ethnicity, age, location, rural versus urban, and income source. In households, children and women often suffer more than men. In the community, minority ethnic or religious groups suffer more than majority groups, and the rural poor more than the urban poor. Among the rural poor, landless wage workers suffer more than small landowners or tenants. Counts for nearly 63% of poverty worldwide, reaching 90% in some countries like Bangladesh and between 65 and 90% in sub-Saharan Africa. Exceptions to this pattern are several Latin American countries in which poverty is concentrated in urban areas. In almost all countries, the conditions, in terms of personal consumption and access to education, healthcare, potable water and sanitation, housing, transport, and communications, faced by the rural poor are far worse than those faced by the urban poor. Persistently high levels of rural poverty, with or without overall economic growth, have contributed to rapid population growth and migration to urban areas. In fact, much urban poverty is created by the rural poor's efforts to get out of poverty by moving to cities. Distorted government policies, such as penalizing the agriculture sector and neglecting rural, social and physical, infrastructure, have been major contributors to both rural and urban poverty. The links between poverty, economic growth, and income distribution have been studied quite extensively in recent literature on economic development. Absolute poverty can be alleviated if at least two conditions are met: economic growth must occur, or mean income must rise, on a sustained basis, and economic growth must be neutral with respect to income distribution or reduce income inequality. Generally, poverty cannot be reduced if economic growth does not occur. In fact, the persistent poverty of a substantial portion of the population can dampen the prospects for economic growth. Also, the initial distribution of income and wealth can greatly affect the prospects for growth and alleviation of mass poverty. Substantial evidence suggests that a highly unequal distribution of income is not conducive to either economic growth or poverty reduction. Experience has shown that if countries put in place incentive structures and complementary investments to ensure that better health and education lead to higher incomes, the poor will benefit doubly through increased current consumption and higher future incomes. The pattern and stability of economic growth also matter. On the one hand, traditional capital-intensive, import-substituting, and urban-biased growth, induced by government policies on pricing, trade, and public expenditure, has generally not helped alleviate poverty. On the other hand, agricultural growth, where there is a low concentration of land ownership and labor-intensive technologies are used, has almost always helped reduce poverty. Finally, sharp drops in economic growth, resulting from shocks and economic adjustments, may increase the incidence of poverty. Even when growth resumes, the incidence of poverty may not improve if inequality has been worsened by the crisis.